The planet Valtoris was a dying world, a wasteland of jagged cliffs, crimson skies, and winds that howled like mourning spirits. Kale Drax trudged through its treacherous terrain, his boots crunching over brittle rocks and ash-covered soil. His target was close. The scanner on his wrist pulsed with rhythmic beeps, signaling that the elusive Volari Manta, a creature worth more than a starship, was within range. Kale was no stranger to this game. As a bounty hunter, he had spent years tracking down the galaxy's most elusive prey. Volari Mantas were a legend among collectors, rumored to be the last remnants of a powerful but extinct species. A single capture would set him up for life. Yet, despite his usual thrill for the hunt, something about this mission felt off. He crested a ridge and froze. Below, nestled in a shallow ravine, lay the creature. At first glance, the Volari Manta was breathtaking, a silvery being that seemed to shimmer and ripple, even in stillness. Its elongated body, covered in sleek, reflective scales, was a marvel of evolutionary perfection. But as Kale peered closer through the scope of his rifle, he noticed the blood. A jagged gash ran along the creature's flank, oozing a luminous blue liquid that stained the ground. The manta's movements were sluggish, its tail dragging behind it as it tried to crawl to the shade of a nearby rock formation. It didn't snarl or hiss. Instead, it emitted a low, mournful hum that resonated through the air like a song of despair. Kale frowned. He was used to dangerous beasts that would attack on sight or bolt at the first hint of danger. But this one was different. Its glassy, obsidian eyes weren't filled with rage or fear but a strange, disarming intelligence. "You're not what I expected," Kale muttered under his breath. He raised his rifle, adjusting the sights. One tranquilizer dart, and it would all be over. He could call in his ship, deliver the prize, and collect his fortune. Yet, as his finger hovered over the trigger, doubt crept into his mind. The creature's injured state made it feel less like a hunt and more like a betrayal. Kale cursed himself and lowered the rifle. He rummaged through his pack, pulling out a vial of universal healing serum. It wasn't designed for alien physiology, but it was the best he had. Slowly, he approached the creature, his boots crunching softly against the rocks. The manta's eyes followed him, unblinking. Its hum grew louder, almost as if warning him to stay back. "I'm not here to hurt you," Kale said, his voice calm but firm. "At least, not anymore." He knelt beside the creature, his pulse quickening as he saw its wound up close. It was deep, likely caused by one of the planet's many predators. With careful hands, he injected the serum into the edge of the gash. The creature flinched but didn't lash out. "There," he said softly. "That should help." Kale sat back, watching as the serum took effect. The manta's silvery skin began to knit itself together, the luminous blood clotting as the wound slowly closed. It let out a softer hum, this time almost grateful. Kale shook his head. He was anthropomorphizing it. He'd been alone in the wilds too long. Night fell quickly on Valtoris, the crimson sky deepening into a bruised purple. Kale set up a small camp nearby, a fire crackling at its center. He kept one eye on the creature as he ate a ration pack, half expecting it to slink away into the night. But it stayed, resting by the rock formation where he had found it. "Why didn't you run?" he asked aloud, knowing there would be no answer. The manta's eyes glimmered in the firelight, reflecting the stars above. For a moment, Kale felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. Guilt? Compassion? Whatever it was, it made him uneasy. He wasn't a hero or a saint, he was a bounty hunter. Mercy wasn't supposed to be part of the job. As the fire crackled and the winds howled in the distance, Kale leaned back against his pack, his weapon within arm's reach. He told himself that this was just another job, another mark. But deep down, he knew that his decision to spare the creature would lead to something far bigger than he had ever bargained for. The Volari Manta lay motionless, its breathing slow and steady. Under the twin moons of Valtoris, the line between hunter and hunted began to blur. Unseen by Kale, a faint glow began to emanate from the creature's wound, spreading across its body like liquid light. Something was changing, but Kale wouldn't notice until it was far too late. The moons of Valtoris hung high in the sky, their pale light casting an ethereal glow over the rocky landscape. The fire Kale had built crackled softly, but its warmth seemed insignificant in the vast emptiness of the alien wilderness. He sat on the edge of sleep, his head nodding forward before jerking upright. His instincts, honed through years of danger, kept him from truly relaxing. The Volari manta hadn't moved much since he treated its wound. It lay coiled near a jagged outcrop, its shimmering scales catching the firelight. Kale had watched it for hours, trying to reconcile his decision. He was known for his efficiency and detachment. There was no room for sentiment in his line of work. And yet, here he was, playing nursemaid to a creature that was supposed to be his prize. As exhaustion finally claimed him, a strange hum drifted through the air, low and rhythmic, like a melody from another world. Kale stirred but didn't wake. The hum grew louder, reverberating through the ravine, mingling with the wind and the crackle of the fire. The Volari manta was changing. Its silver scales began to ripple like liquid mercury, waves of light undulating across its body. The transformation was subtle at first, its elongated form shortening, its fins retracting. The gash along its side glowed faintly, healing at an accelerated pace. The once injured creature rose unsteadily onto what now resembled humanoid limbs. Kale awoke with a start. The hum had grown impossibly loud, a sound that seemed to resonate inside his skull. His hand instinctively reached for his rifle as he scanned the area. His eyes fell on the Volari manta, or what had been the Volari manta. In its place stood a figure unlike anything he had ever seen. A woman or something close to it stood bathed in the light of the twin moons. Her skin shimmered with the same silvery hue as the creature's scales, but now it was smooth and supple, catching the light like polished metal. Her hair, long and luminous, flowed as if suspended in water. She was tall, willowy, and undeniably alien. Kale scrambled to his feet, his rifle trained on her. What the hell are you?" The figure tilted her head, those same black, glassy eyes locking onto his. "I am Sarai of Volaris," she said, her voice melodic and resonant, as if it carried the echoes of 1,000 stars. "You showed me mercy, Hunter. For that, I thank you." Kale's grip on his rifle tightened. "Mercy? You were an injured animal." "I am no animal," Sarai said, stepping closer. The movement was graceful, almost hypnotic, but Kale held his ground. "The form you saw was a mask, a means of survival. My true form was hidden, as it has been for centuries." Kale's mind raced. Volaris. The name was familiar, whispered in ancient tales of a race that had once ruled the stars. They were said to be masters of biomorphing technology, capable of reshaping their bodies at will. But they had vanished long ago, hunted to extinction, or so everyone believed. "You're one of them," Kale said, his voice low. "A Volari." Sarai nodded, her expression unreadable. "The last." Kale shook his head, lowering the rifle slightly. "If you're as powerful as the stories say, why were you hiding as that creature? Why not fight back? Do you think I haven't tried?" Sarai's voice hardened, her luminous eyes narrowing. "My people were hunted by those who feared our abilities, who sought to use us or destroy us. I took the form of a predator to escape detection, but even that could not protect me. And now, I am alone." Her words hung in the air, heavy with sorrow. For a moment, Kale felt a pang of guilt. He had come to this planet to capture what he thought was a mindless beast. Instead, he had found the remnants of an entire civilization. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice softer. "You going to kill me for knowing your secret?" Sarai's expression softened, and she gave a small, almost sad smile. "If I wanted you dead, Hunter, you would be. But you saved me when you didn't have to. That is a rarity in this galaxy." Kale lowered his rifle completely, though he kept it within easy reach. "So, what do you want from me?" "To leave this place," Sarai said simply. "And to survive. You seem capable. If you help me, I can reward you in ways no bounty ever could." Kale raised an eyebrow. "You're talking to a guy who's been lied to by some of the best. Why should I trust you?" "Because you already do," Sarai replied, her black eyes glinting. "If you didn't, I would still be lying in that ravine." Kale hated that she was right. Against every instinct screaming at him to turn her in and collect the payday of a lifetime, he found himself nodding. There was something about her, something he couldn't quite explain. Whether it was her vulnerability or the sheer impossibility of her existence, he knew he couldn't just walk away. "All right," he said finally. "We'll figure something out. But no more surprises, got it?" Sarai inclined her head in agreement, though a faint smile played at her lips. No more surprises, for now. As the fire crackled and the moans continued their silent vigil, Kale felt the weight of his decision settle over him. He had no idea what he was getting himself into, but one thing was certain: this was no ordinary hunt. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous and far more extraordinary than he could have ever imagined. The morning on Valtoris was no less desolate than the night. The sky blazed with a sickly red hue as Kale and Sarai stood near the remnants of the campfire, discussing their next move. Kale leaned against a rock, cleaning his rifle with methodical precision, while Sarai gazed toward the horizon, her luminous silver-blue skin shimmering faintly in the dim light. "Let's get one thing straight," Kale said without looking up. "If we're going to work together, I need to know what I'm dealing with. What exactly can you do?" Sarai turned to him, her expression calm but serious. "The Volari were biomorphs. We adapted, evolved, changed as needed. That ability kept us alive for centuries until we became the hunted." Kale set his rifle down, his brow furrowed. "And what about you? Can you fight?" "I can defend myself," Sarai said simply. "But fighting isn't my way. It's not what we were meant for." Kale sighed. "Well, you'd better start making exceptions, because Relk isn't going to just walk away." As if on cue, a distant hum echoed through the air. Kale's eyes narrowed, and he immediately grabbed his rifle. "That's a ship." Sarai's gaze snapped toward the sky. Her sharp senses picked up the faint glimmer of light reflecting off a metallic hull far above. "Your people?" Kale shook his head grimly. "Not my people, Relks. He doesn't take kindly to freelancers skipping out on his deals." Relk, a notorious bounty broker, had funded Kale's mission in exchange for a hefty cut of the Volari Manta's bounty. He was ruthless, driven by greed, and not above killing to ensure his investments paid off. Kale had hoped to avoid confrontation, but it seemed his luck had run out. "We need to move," Kale said, slinging his pack over his shoulder. "They'll sweep the area fast. If they find us here, we're dead." "Then lead the way," Sarai said, her voice steady. Kale didn't waste time. He led Sarai across the rugged terrain, moving swiftly but cautiously. The hum of the ship grew louder, the sound of engines echoing ominously. Kale knew they didn't have long. As they descended into a narrow gorge, the sound of thrusters roared overhead. Kale grabbed Sarai's arm and pulled her under the cover of an overhang just as a sleek, black ship flew low, its searchlight scanning the ground. They pressed against the rock wall, holding their breath as the beam of light passed inches away. "Damn it," Kale muttered. "They've got trackers. They'll pick up my biosignature in no time." "Then let them come," Sarai said, her black eyes gleaming with determination. "I won't hide forever." Kale gave her a skeptical look. "You do realize they'll kill us both, right?" "They'll try," Sarai replied. "But they've never faced a Volari." Before Kale could argue, the sound of boots on rock echoed through the gorge. Relk's mercenaries had landed and were closing in fast. Kale cursed under his breath, raising his rifle and peering through the scope. 5 figures, heavily armed and moving in formation, approached their position. "Stay here," Kale whispered to Sarai. "Let me handle this." "No," she said firmly. "You help me." "I will help you." Kale didn't have time to protest. The mercenaries rounded the corner, their weapons drawn. One of them shouted, "Kale! Relk wants his bounty, and you're not getting out of this alive if you don't hand it over." Kale stepped out from cover, his rifle aimed at the leader. "Yeah? Tell Relk he can go to hell." The mercenaries opened fire, their energy bolts sizzling through the air. Kale ducked and returned fire, his shots precise and deadly. He took down 2 of them before diving behind a boulder for cover. Sarai stepped forward, her hands raised. Kale shouted, "What are you doing? Get down." But Sarai wasn't defenseless. Her eyes glowed, and the air around her shimmered with energy. She moved her hands in a fluid motion, creating a barrier of light that deflected the incoming fire. The mercenaries hesitated, their weapons useless against the impenetrable shield. Kale took advantage of their confusion, popping up from cover and taking out another mercenary. The remaining 2 turned their attention to Sarai, but she was already on the move. With a flick of her wrist, the ground beneath their feet shifted, turning to a sticky, viscous substance that immobilized them. The leader struggled, his boots sinking into the trap. What is she?" Kale approached, his rifle trained on the man. "You don't want to know." Before the leader could respond, Sarai stepped closer, her gaze cold. "Leave now, and tell your captain this, the Valari are not prey." The leader hesitated, fear etched across his face. Kale gave him a shove. "Go on. Tell Relk he's wasting his time." The mercenaries retreated, dragging their fallen comrades back toward the ship. As the sound of their engines faded into the distance, Kale turned to Sarai. "Not bad," he admitted. "But you just painted a target on both our backs." Sarai met his gaze, her expression calm. "They were always going to hunt us. At least now, they'll think twice." Kale shook his head. "You're either brave or insane. I haven't decided which." "Perhaps a bit of both," Sarai said with a faint smile. As they continued their journey, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that his life had taken a turn he could never have predicted. The bounty hunter and the last Valari pairing that would make them both legends, for better or worse. The only question was how long they could survive against a galaxy that wanted them both dead. The stolen ship, a battered but functional freighter, roared as it broke free of Valtoros's atmosphere. Kale's hands moved deftly across the controls, his eyes flicking between the instrument panel and the viewport. Below them, the desolate planet shrank rapidly, its crimson glow fading into the void of space. Sarai stood near the co-pilot's seat, her silver blue skin shimmering faintly in the dim cabin light. She watched silently as Kale plotted a course, her gaze steady but thoughtful. The hum of the engines filled the cabin, a steady reminder of their escape. "We'll need to make a jump soon," Kale said, breaking the silence. "Relk's not the type to let us go without a fight. He'll have a tracker on this ship." Sarai nodded, her luminous hair catching the light as she turned to face him. "Do you have a destination in mind?" Kale shrugged, leaning back in his seat. "I know a few places on the fringe. Quiet, out of the way. At least until the heat dies down." "Running is not a solution," Sarai said softly, her voice calm but firm. Kale glanced at her, one eyebrow raised. "You got a better idea?" "Because as far as I can tell, every bounty hunter in the galaxy's gonna want a piece of you." "And you," Sarai reminded him. "You chose to help me, and now they will see you as a traitor." Kale snorted. "Story of my life." The silence returned, heavy and uneasy. Kale tapped his fingers on the console, his mind racing. He had spent his entire career living by a simple code: survive, get paid, and move on. But Sarai had changed everything. She wasn't just another job or a fleeting encounter. She was something rare, something extraordinary. And for reasons he couldn't fully explain, he felt compelled to protect her. "Why do you trust me?" Cale asked suddenly, his voice quieter than before. "You barely know me." Sarai tilted her head, studying him. "You showed mercy when you had no reason to. You could have left me to die or sold me to the highest bidder, but you didn't. That tells me everything I need to know." Cale sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe I'm just tired of chasing things that don't matter." "Perhaps," Sarai said, her tone thoughtful. "Or perhaps you've always been more than you allowed yourself to be." Before Cale could respond, the ship's proximity alarms blared, the lights in the cabin flashing red. Cale's hands flew to the controls, and Sarai gripped the edge of the console. "Looks like Relk's already on us," Cale muttered. "Brace yourself." A sleek, black ship materialized on the scanner, its engines burning bright as it closed the distance. Cale recognized it instantly, Relk's personal cruiser, armed to the teeth and built for pursuit. "They've locked onto us," Sarai said, her voice steady despite the danger. Cale grinned grimly. "Good. Let's see if they can keep up." He slammed the throttle forward, sending the freighter into a sharp dive. The ship's engines roared as they hurtled through an asteroid field, jagged rocks spinning dangerously close. Cale's reflexes were razor-sharp, his hands moving with practiced precision as he weaved through the debris. Relk's cruiser followed, its weapons lighting up the darkness with bursts of energy. Bolts of plasma streaked past the freighter, some coming close enough to scorch the hull. Cale gritted his teeth, his focus unshakable. "Can you do anything?" Cale shouted over the alarms. Sarai closed her eyes, her hands moving in intricate patterns. The air around her shimmered, and a faint glow spread through the cabin. Cale felt the ship respond, its movements becoming smoother, more agile, as if it were an extension of Sarai herself. "What are you?" Cale began, but Sarai interrupted. "Just fly. I'll handle the rest." With Sarai's influence, the freighter seemed to anticipate Cale's every move. It twisted and rolled through the asteroid field, evading the relentless fire from Relk's cruiser. One particularly large asteroid loomed ahead, its surface riddled with craters. Cale grinned. "Hold on." He directed the freighter into one of the craters, skimming just above the surface before plunging into a narrow tunnel. The walls closed in around them, the ship barely fitting through the jagged passage. Behind them, Relk's cruiser hesitated. "Come on, you bastard," Cale muttered. The cruiser fired a barrage of missiles, but the freighter darted out of the tunnel at the last second. The explosion rocked the asteroid, sending debris hurtling into space. Relk's ship was forced to pull back, its shields flickering as it absorbed the impact. Cale whooped, slamming his fist on the console. "That'll teach him." Sarai opened her eyes, the glow around her fading. She looked slightly drained but smiled faintly. "You are skilled." Cale smirked. "And you're full of surprises." With Relk's ship temporarily out of commission, Cale brought the freighter into open space. He activated the hyperdrive, plotting a course to the farthest system he could reach. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the ship made the jump, leaving Valtoris and their pursuers far behind. As the cabin returned to silence, Cale leaned back in his seat, exhaling deeply. "We made it." "For now," Sarai said. "But this is only the beginning." Cale turned to her, his expression serious. "What's your plan, Sarai? What happens after we find some quiet corner of the galaxy to hide in?" Sarai met his gaze, her black eyes reflecting the starlight. "I don't intend to hide forever. My people's legacy cannot end with me. There is a purpose to my survival, a chance to rebuild, to reclaim what was lost." Cale shook his head, a wry smile on his lips. "You've got big dreams, Valari. Bigger than anything I've ever seen." "Dreams are all that remain," Sarai said softly. But with the right allies, even dreams can become reality. Kale chuckled, though there was no humor in it. Well, you've got one ally. Let's hope that's enough. The freighter sailed through the vast expanse of space, its course uncertain but its passengers united by a fragile bond. Kale and Sarai were outlaws, fugitives in a galaxy that wanted them dead. But for the first time in Kale's life, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. As the ship hurtled toward the unknown, Kale glanced at Sarai and smiled. So, what do you think? Got a name for this crazy plan of yours? Sarai tilted her head, a spark of determination in her eyes. Hope. Kale laughed, the sound unexpected but genuine. Hope, huh? Guess we could all use a little of that. And with that, they disappeared into the stars, chasing a future neither of them could fully imagine but one they were determined to create together.